I just want to introduce my beautiful wife, Brittany, again. Thank you for SophWear. We're proud. We're going to get up here. You opened my eyes to. I was a different person before Sophie was born. I was very focused on, my family and getting the most out of, for them. And very, very successful in oil and gas, and that's what I did. I worked, and I'm ensured that my daughter had the best medical possible, the best. I took her everywhere, and I avoided one day. It's called Botox Day, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it is where you get to hold your daughter down, and they put Botox to release the spasticity, because my daughter Sophie has triplegic cerebral palsy. And that day, I saw my son hold his sister down and calm her, and I saw my wife that was there while I was, being successful, making she was getting the best care. And I sat over in the corner and I cried when I recorded it, and I forced myself, to step up and be the man that you're seeing today. So thank you for all of this and the opportunity. And Brittany?
Ready? Yeah, just let me know how you want to do this.
You guys can go sit down.
So during the birthing process, Sophie got stuck, and they were supposed to they should have done an emergency C-section, and they did not. So he continued to have me labor, and in that meantime, Sophie had a lack of oxygen to the brain. Once they got her out with the forceps and the vacuum, they used all to the max of their ability that they could, and they had to resuscitate her. So then she went to the NICU, and that is where she was put on this cool cap in a coma for 72 hours. It talked about difficult. She had seizures on the way to the NICU, and we were in a smaller town, and she had to go to a larger city to be in an actual NICU. So thank God that they got her on the cool cap within that 6-hour time frame that they had to. They got the swelling to go down some, and if it would have been 15 years earlier, she would have been, nonverbal, down to a wheelchair, G-tube. So thank God that, she can walk and talk, and developmentally, it took her a lot longer, to sit up and crawl and do all of those things, but through the grace of God, we've made it, and backing behind her is Gabe and everyone else, and so we're very blessed with that. And then our faith is what's gotten us through this. I truly believe that God is the one that saved her life, because she, needed to be resuscitated at birth. So I truly believe that, she is a complete miracle. And through all
This is the modern solution. This is a $6,000 to $12,000 every 3 months. This is our solution. This is a change for my daughter. This held my daughter back. Every day, my daughter just wanted to wear what mommy wore, and I felt like she should be able to. But 3.5 years into this, after we did casting and all of this 1955 technology, we went to 9 shoe stores. And I'll never forget that day, because I felt like a complete failure. I had a Rolex, and I couldn't get my daughter a pair of shoes to go over this. So a couple months later, Brittany had a dream about incorporating those AFOs into a shoe. And I was like, wow, that's a good idea. I didn't know at the time that the reason they go up high on the calf is to keep the heel down. I didn't know what a GDI score was. So one day, I got tired of hearing my daughter cry. She just wanted to look normal and not have people stare at her, which everybody should have that right. So one day I put up an ugly orthotic sandal. This is one of the first ones. This is what I call the InvisaBrace. And 3 days later, she just came walking around the corner, just like this. And I was like, wait. I was like, we gotta take her to the doctor. And so we took her to our orthotist, and our orthotist said, what? we gotta do a gait lab study on this. And I said, what is a gait lab study? And we did a gait lab study. And that's later in the schedule. Well, there's the Rolex, here's the first one. 20 years I spent as a directional driller making really good money. And I always told people, you know, tithing to me was taking care of my family and being a man. And as an excuse, I always told people that I felt like someday I'd do something big. And this is it. All that money I had saved up allowed me to get 2 utility patents, 4 pending patents, allowed me to travel all over the world, figuring out how to turn that. The world's most renowned doctors from Emory University were asking me when they could get this. And my response was, it's an ugly sandal I cut up. Like, I can't just cut up $200 sandals. So I had to figure out how to turn that into this. This is what the InvisaBrace looks like today. And as we continued on, Sophie got stronger. Why? Because I wasn't putting the most deadly substance, Botox, according to the CDC's website, into my daughter. I have not held her down since I watched, my son have to coach. Why? Because I lift her toe up to 30 degrees. 30 degrees in walking puts that constant stretch. And the doctors, I love reading the doctor's notes because they say, Dad invented brace that outperformed leading brace. Dad lifted toes and Dad had to have Botox injection. So it's been absolutely amazing. This is the InvisaSole. What the InvisaSole is, nobody cared about what I was doing. Why? Because they're making $6,000 to $12,000 off of that. And somebody coming up with a 3D printer that I got for $800 and produced for $1.50 to $2 after I take a picture and run it through my AI, doctors did not like that. But I had all these cool utility patents, and I can't just. You have to put the science behind it. So my formal life, I was a directional driller. I got very good at hitting objects somewhere over there 2 miles down that we couldn't see. So I realized that all AI can see is G-code. Well, that is the exact same thing as coordinates. So I incorporated directional theory in biomechanics, and that is how I came up with 15 different disabilities that we lift up toes at certain different degrees. Autism, a very renowned doctor called me and said, Mike, do you know how bad toe walking is in children with autism? And I said, no. And it's bad. She said, Mike, can we try it? So I asked my AI, 15 degrees, no more toe walking. 2 sensory methods put in a shoe, vibration plus the lift up. 6 months later, those kids, they weren't toe walking anymore. So it's Jimmy Larson right there, neuropathy. Jimmy, how's it?
Well, ever since, Mike was at the house the other night, he had these little, I don't know what you call them. They go in the tip of your toe and they raise your toes up. I've had some severe neuropathy for the last 5 years, ever since I had heart disease and diabetes, type 2 diabetes. I put him in my shoe, what he did, he put him in my shoe, and I walked around for about 4 or 5 hours that night. The next morning, I woke up, and that's the first time I woke up in 5 years that my feet, I didn't have to be real ginger standing up. My feet didn't feel like I was walking in sand covered in cement. And I wore it for a couple hours, and then I put my regular boots on without it. By the end of the day, within 4 or 5 hours, my feet hurt, so I put these back on. I woke up this morning great, and my feeling is back in my toes after like 2 days. So yeah, it's like just lifting my toes that much. Yeah, I think it's gonna fix neuropathy, believe it or not.
Wow, that's amazing.
This is literally the one she wore. Inside of a shoe, and there's a little video later on where it shows it. She said 5.1% on the GDI score. I said, what? What is a GDI score? She said it's gait deviation index. And 15% reduction in mentality. 15% faster walking speed. When you have cerebral palsy, you consume 2 to 4 times more energy than somebody that doesn't have cerebral palsy. So the fact that we're able to speed her up 15%, 5.1 in her overall support, this weighs a lot more than what my daughter wears now. What my daughter wears now, and as she got stronger, and since I wasn't putting poison into her body, we went from this to this. This is the InvisaBrace. And now she wears a 20-degree ToeLift. That is what she wears. Inside of her own shoe that we call the SophTop. And throughout all of this is kind of, you guys can imagine, like, when you see the world map, you're going to think this guy's crazy, because I couldn't find anybody to make a shoe in the United States. That is a trait that we farmed out for profits a long time ago. I'd love to bring it back here, but my daughter, it'd take more years to bring it back. So we went to China. This is the GabeTop, named after my son. And what this is I consider it a unity shoe, because 15 different disabilities by lifting up toes from 10 to 30 degrees, everything from autism. One day we were driving home, and a World War II vet, our neighbor, I seen him carrying his wife like this, and I'm like, man, I wonder if that would help. So, and he's a World War II guy. Like, them dudes are tougher, than us. And I go up to him, and I was like, hey man, can I help you out? I think this might help, your wife. And so I went 3D printed it, and I saw that World War II vet cry. And my son was recording it, because like nobody would believe me that this tough old dude, that there was tears of joy, because she was lifting her toes. There's the crazy world map of 515 trips. I quit my directional drilling job once people started telling me that I had a duty to society to make sure that this got out. And I was mad at God. I blamed him for all of this. And now this all started after a vision that she had. So that is why we're so driven. Because it's the only thing that makes sense in my life. It was a blessing that it's been a curse a lot of the times too. Because giving up that salary and investing everything into this video you're going to see, it really kind of tells the rest of the story. Thank you.
Roberto Duran is known as Hands of Stone, but those who know his story know that he also has a heart of gold. A legend, not only for his strength in the ring, but also for his compassion outside of it.
Hola, yo soy Roberto Durán y invito a que colocan a Sophie. Como ella, hay muchos niños en el mundo que sufren de parálisis cerebral.
Roberto Duran came into our lives. It was an absolute blessing.
Michael and I have been married for 11 years. We have 2 beautiful children, Gabriel and Sophie, who is the one with cerebral palsy.
How are you? What was supposed to be the best experience of my life was one of the most horrible, because I got to see the love of my life go through a lot of pain. And my daughter, when she was born, she wasn't alive. They had to resuscitate her.
When I got the news of Sophie having cerebral palsy, she was 14 months old. And we did not know what cerebral palsy was. So we had a lot of learning to do and lots of doctor's appointments and therapies.
Y we have
cerebral palsy. There's a lot of other disabilities out there in the world, and poverty is just as bad as a disability.
This is reality. Sitting on the smile, this is on.
We are very honored to be part of Faith Over CP and to be able to support Sophie in her fight. It means the world to us.
What this has done for our organization is it echoes. His voice carries our voice places I never thought it would go.
We cannot wait to start the fight with you together as one.
Sophie fight is powerful. I love you, Sophie.
faithovercp.org.
So I know that's
And
a
the
little
world
bit of
knows
money, but after I got those gate lab results, I wrote about it on Facebook, just hoping something would happen. And one of my buddies named Roberto Duran, and he said, "Will you make me a shoe?" And I was like, nobody knows who I am. This guy's a 6-time boxing champion. Mike Tyson, grew up watching him. I was like, let's go kick off our nonprofit down in Panama. So that's what we did. We flew everybody down to Panama, my family, and that's what we did with Roberto Duran. And then Roberto Duran said, "Hey Mike, we travel around with me." And I said, "Yeah, everybody knows who I am. Me standing up there on Panama all day in New York City on a flag, this and this." And it did. And it was awesome to be able to watch Roberto Duran. This is one man that achieved a lot of greatness in Panama, and did a lot of very good things in Panama. And he's really, I give him a lot of credit for, I looked at him and I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's what the legacy step side of this is. I have a small town hero one where one of my friends passed away throughout this. And, a portion of the proceeds for that shoe is going towards his family. And, same with the Duran shoe. It's, the same deal that Duran got. Every town has a small town hero. And I'm really hoping that I can start a trend with this, because every town in America has a small town hero. So, you want to finish her up, baby? Or you want to
Go back.
I did a lot of talking.
It's okay. So I do want to say one thing about the shoes that I've noticed with Sophie and a couple of the other kids that we have helped with this is confidence. Confidence being a little girl. I remember at age 3.5 going to preschool, she was so fit every single morning because she noticed at 3.5 that all these other little girls wore cute sandals and she had to wear these braces, or cute boots in the fall and she had to wear these braces, and every day was a battle. And she needed to wear them because it helped with her mobility. So I would put them on her and take her to school, and she'd come home and she'd still just be so upset about it. And so confidence with these all kids. A lot of little boys that wear the AFOs don't want to wear them either. And I've heard that from our physical therapist that this is amazing because especially the confidence boost that it gives these children, and even in middle school and high school, if they don't have these AFO braces on, like she said, they end up going back and having a hard time walking, and it kind of, takes multiple steps back. So confidence, huge. I've definitely noticed this, Sophie and a lot of other kids that we've helped. So I kind of wanted to mention that too. The whole confidence boost of it is ginormous. And then we want to thank you guys for listening to our story about our family and everything that we have been through. And, to me, what God has brought us to and what we want to do is just help anybody that we possibly can with this gift that God has given us. So we just thank you very much.